When we imagine a dystopian future, the picture in our heads is usually the same. We picture a gray, oppressive surveillance state ruled by a dictator who watches our every move. That specific nightmare comes straight from George Orwell's novel 1984. Orwell mapped out a society dominated by Big Brother, where truth is suppressed, books are banned, and compliance is enforced through pain. Because that fear is so deeply ingrained in our culture, we spend our time looking outward, constantly scanning the horizon for signs of external oppression and censorship. We survived the actual year 1984 without falling into Orwell's nightmare. We congratulated ourselves for avoiding the trap, and in doing so, we completely missed the actual threat. Orwell wasn't the only one making predictions. Decades earlier, Aldous Huxley wrote a very different novel called Brave New World. Huxley didn't write about a society controlled by pain. He wrote about a society controlled by pleasure. In his vision, citizens are subdued by infinite distraction and a flood of completely irrelevant information. Look around today. The truth isn't being hidden from us by some shadowy government tyrant. The truth is drowning in an ocean of triviality, buried under our own appetite for distraction. In 1985, broadcast television culture was at its absolute peak. Ratings were astronomical, and the screen dictated the terms of the national conversation. Watching this happen was an American media theorist named Neil Postman. He realized that Huxley's warnings weren't fiction anymore. They were coming true right in front of him. He diagnosed this shift in a book titled Amusing Ourselves to Death. Postman argued that our obsession with amusement had become a form of self-subjugation. We were trading our awareness for a constant diet of entertainment. Postman localized the failure in the screen itself. He argued that the physical format of broadcast media dictates the level of complexity any public conversation can actually reach. Reading printed text requires patience, logic, and a deep understanding of context. But a glowing screen demands constant, rapid visual stimulation to keep your eyes from wandering. Because screens require constant motion to hold attention, serious public discourse is forced to wear the disguise of light entertainment to survive. Postman mapped out the symptoms of this transition, starting with what happens to journalism, the news whiplash. Watch a modern broadcast. Anchors will report on a tragic event, a 5-alarm fire, or a deadly conflict. Then, in the same breath, they pivot smoothly to celebrity gossip or smile to introduce a beer commercial. The second symptom is the transformation of politics into show business. Political campaigns have moved away from rigorous policy debates. Instead, candidates prioritize late-night talk show appearances, relying on casting, optics, and sound bites to win over an audience. The third symptom is the packaging of religion as pop culture. To maintain ratings, complex theological concepts are dumbed down into top 10 listicles or flashy, fast-paced programming. News, politics, and religion. The gravity of these pillars of society has been eroded because they all compete for the exact same metric, our fleeting attention. In 1985, Postman was analyzing an era of 3 network channels and a TV set in the living room. Since then, the media landscape has expanded into every corner of our lives. The internet accelerated this fragmentation. On a social media feed, a report on a housing crisis exists for exactly as long as the cat video that follows it, depriving the crisis of its scale, its history, and its urgency. When college students read Postman today, they find that his 40-year-old diagnosis maps onto their chaotic digital lives with startling precision. As screens occupy every spare moment of our day, the space required for deep context has been crowded out. We are left with a massive pile of information, but very little understanding of how any of it fits together. To test just how deep this dependency goes, a university professor routinely assigns her students a simple task: a 24-hour fast from all electronic media. Every semester, 90% of the class shrugs it off as an easy joke, and every semester it devolves into genuine agony. Students report feeling intense withdrawal symptoms just from hearing a phone ring they aren't allowed to answer. But the outcome of the experiment is profound. Deprived of their screens, the students are forced to sit with their own thoughts. They take walks. They engage in actual, long-form conversations that last for hours. We are addicted to amusement. We are terrified of silence. We actively use these screens to escape the weight of our own minds. Postman left us with enduring questions that apply to every piece of glass we stare into. Do these technologies liberate us, or do they imprison us? Do these streams of content make us better, informed citizens, or do they mold us into compliant consumers? Postman wasn't a pessimist, and he wasn't asking us to burn our televisions or smash our routers. To survive Huxley's dystopia, we don't need to overthrow a tyrannical government. We simply need the willpower to recognize the trance, occasionally turn off the screen, and demand meaning over mere amusement.